Zulu wasn't just a war epic. It was a cinematic battleground where the brutal legacy of the British Empire collided with the harsh realities of apartheid South Africa, a production so fraught with political tension, financial desperation, and on-set danger that it is a miracle the film was ever completed. Behind the heroic stand of 150 soldiers against 4,000 warriors lay a story of racial segregation, career-ending risks, and historical distortions that continue to spark debate today. What audiences saw as a tale of courage was actually a deeply complex and morally ambiguous production that mirrored the very conflicts it depicted. Today, we're storming the defenses of this cinematic classic to reveal the truth. Here are 20 weird facts about Zulu, and stay tuned for a bonus fact that will change everything you thought you knew about this film. Number 20. The film was made under apartheid's shadow, and the cast was segregated. The production wasn't just filming in South Africa, it was enforcing its laws of racial segregation. Despite being a film about Zulu culture, the Zulu extras and actors were kept separate from the white cast and crew, forced to use different facilities and eat in separate areas as mandated by apartheid law. This created a surreal and deeply uncomfortable atmosphere on set, where the very people being portrayed as noble warriors were treated as second-class citizens in their own land. What made this even more troubling was that the filmmakers, while seeking authenticity, had to comply with a system they were implicitly endorsing by shooting there. The irony wasn't lost on the Zulu performers, who were participating in a celebration of their history while being denied basic human dignity. It wasn't just a movie set, it was a microcosm of a brutal regime, a moral compromise that stained the production's legacy from the very beginning. Number 19. The real survivors suffered, but the film ignored their trauma. The film's heroic ending wasn't just a simplification, it was a complete fabrication that ignored the devastating psychological aftermath for the real survivors of Rorkes Drift. While the movie portrays the defenders as triumphant heroes, historical accounts reveal that many of the soldiers who fought there suffered from what we would now recognize as severe post-traumatic stress disorder. They were haunted by nightmares, struggled with alcoholism, and lived with the trauma of the close-quarters combat for the rest of their lives. The film, in its quest for a rousing climax, completely omits this darker reality, presenting a sanitized version of war where heroism comes without a cost. What audiences didn't know was that the cheerful marching song at the end was a lie, a cinematic bandage over a deep and festering wound. The film wasn't just telling a story. It was perpetuating a myth that ignored the true brutal cost of violence on the human psyche. Number 18. A stuntman nearly drowned, performing a simple fall. The action wasn't just choreographed, it was terrifyingly real. In the scene where a soldier is shot and falls into the river, swept away by the current, the production didn't use a dummy. They used stuntman Reg Harding, who had to perform the fall himself. The current was far stronger than anticipated, and Harding was dragged underwater, struggling to stay afloat as the crew watched in horror. For a terrifying moment, it seemed he would drown before they could get a boat to him. What made this even more reckless was that it was done for a shot that lasts mere seconds on screen. The risk wasn't just calculated, it was borderline criminal. Director Cy Enfield, known for his demanding nature, insisted on the real thing for maximum impact. The stunt wasn't just a piece of action, it was a life-or-death gamble that highlighted the production's often casual disregard for safety in the pursuit of cinematic realism. Number 17. Star Stanley Baker mortgaged his house to save the film. The film wasn't just a job for Stanley Baker, it was everything. The Welsh actor who also co-produced the film believed so passionately in the project that when the budget ran out mid-production, he didn't just seek more funding, he mortgaged his own house to cover the costs. This was an all-in bet that could have left him and his family destitute if the film failed. What made this even more desperate was that Baker was fighting not just for the film, but for his own career as a serious actor and producer. He had turned down major Hollywood roles to get Zulu made, and failure was not an option. The production wasn't just a business venture, it was a personal crusade, a high-stakes gamble where a man's entire financial future was on the line for the sake of a story he believed in. The film's success wasn't just a victory, it was a personal deliverance. Number 16. Michael Caine was an unknown who had to fight for his part. The face that launched 1,000 films wasn't the first choice. Michael Caine was a complete unknown when he was cast as the aristocratic Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead, a role he secured largely because he was cheap and available. The original choice for the part was another actor who was moved to a different role, leaving an opening. Caine, then a minor television actor, fought for it, but his working-class Cockney background was a major hurdle for a director who wanted an upper-class officer. Caine had to adopt a plummy, posh accent, which he found difficult and which was occasionally criticized. What made this even more dramatic was that Caine was on the verge of quitting acting before this role. The film wasn't just a job for him, it was his last chance, a final roll of the dice that transformed him from an unknown into a global star. His performance wasn't just a breakthrough, it was a miracle. Number 15. The Zulu warriors weren't all Zulu. The authenticity wasn't just curated, it was compromised. While the film prided itself on using local tribesmen as extras, many of the warriors on screen were not actually Zulu. Due to the complexities of hiring under apartheid and the sheer number of people needed, the production recruited men from various other ethnic groups and tribes in the region. This led to occasional friction and communication issues on set, as different groups had their own customs and languages. What made this even more ironic was that these men were being trained to perform authentic Zulu war chants and formations by Zulu chiefs, creating a strange blend of cultural representation. The battle scenes weren't just a recreation, they were a mosaic of different South African cultures united for a Hollywood film, a testament to the fact that cinematic authenticity is often a carefully constructed illusion. Number 14. The film slandered a real-life hero. The character of the drunken, malingerer Private Hook wasn't just a fictional creation, it was a vicious libel against a real-life war hero. The historical Private Henry Hook was in fact a model soldier and a teetotaler who was awarded the Victoria Cross for his bravery at Rorkes Drift, single-handedly defending the hospital ward. His family was outraged and deeply hurt by his portrayal in the film as a cowardly shirker. The filmmakers, seeking to create dramatic tension and a character arc for a rogue who finds his courage, completely fabricated this personality. What made this even more unforgivable was that Hook's surviving daughters attended the film's London premiere, only to see their father's name dragged through the mud. The film wasn't just taking dramatic license, it was committing a profound injustice against a real person's memory for the sake of a better story. Number 13. The director was a Hollywood blacklist victim. The man behind the camera wasn't just a filmmaker, he was a political exile. Director Cy Endfield had been a successful director in Hollywood until he was blacklisted during the McCarthy-era Red Scare for his alleged communist sympathies. Forced to leave the United States, he rebuilt his career in Europe, and Zulu became his magnum opus, a chance to work on a grand scale after years in the professional wilderness. What made this even more poignant was that the film, a celebration of British imperial grit, was made by a man who had been hounded out of his own country by a different kind of political ideology. Enfield wasn't just telling a story about a siege, he was a survivor of a different kind of political battle, one that had shaped his entire worldview. The film wasn't just a directorial achievement, it was a personal triumph over persecution. Number 12. The filming location was a real-life battlefield. The production did not just find a good location, it found the location. The film was shot on location in the Drakensberg Mountains of South Africa, remarkably close to the actual site of the Battle of Rorkes Drift. This decision, made for the sake of authenticity, meant the cast and crew were living and working in the same rugged, unforgiving terrain where the real battle took place. They endured the same scorching heat, sudden thunderstorms, and challenging landscape. What made this even more immersive was the sense of history that permeated the set. It wasn't just a film set, it was hallowed ground. This connection to the real events gave the production a palpable sense of place and a somber respect for the history they were depicting. The actors weren't just playing soldiers, they were walking in their footsteps on the very same earth. Number 11. The cast and crew were ravaged by disease. The production wasn't just fighting the Zulus on screen, it was fighting dysentery and heat stroke off it. Shooting in the South African wilderness during the summer took a devastating toll on the cast and crew's health. Michael Caine later recalled that nearly everyone on set was sick at some point, suffering from severe stomach illnesses brought on by contaminated water or food. The extreme heat also led to cases of heat exhaustion and sunstroke. What made this even more grueling was that they had to continue performing demanding battle scenes while feeling utterly miserable. The production wasn't just a creative challenge, it was a physical ordeal that tested the endurance of everyone involved. The war they were depicting wasn't just a metaphor, it was a daily reality of fighting for their own well-being in a hostile environment. Number 10. The Zulu chants were real and led by a future president. The Zulu war chants and battle songs heard in the film weren't just Hollywood sound design, they were real, authentic performances led by their own tribal chiefs. To ensure accuracy, the filmmakers hired Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, a direct descendant of King Cetshwayo, the Zulu king in the film, and a future political leader in South Africa, to play his own ancestor and to coordinate the 450 Zulu extras. He taught them the authentic songs, chants, and battle formations used by their ancestors. What made this historically significant was that Buthelezi would later become a major figure in the apartheid struggle and post-apartheid South Africa. The film wasn't just using actors, it was capturing a piece of living history, performed by the people whose heritage it depicted. The authenticity wasn't just a detail, It was the soul of the film, courtesy of a man who would help shape his nation's future. Number 9. Men of Harlech was almost certainly not sung at the battle. One of the most iconic moments in cinema history, the Welsh soldiers singing Men of Harlech as the Zulus attack, is almost certainly a cinematic invention. There are no contemporary historical accounts of the soldiers singing this specific song during the battle. While they certainly sang to keep morale up, the rousing, synchronized rendition depicted in the film is a piece of brilliant dramatic license by director Cy Endfield. The song itself, in its modern form, wasn't even firmly established until later. What makes this fact fascinating is that it has become so ingrained in popular culture that many people believe it really happened. The scene wasn't just a powerful cinematic moment, it was a myth-making moment that created a new piece of folklore, a testament to the power of film to shape our understanding of history. Number 8. The film grossly exaggerated the ammunition shortage. The tension in the film's final act hinges on the British soldiers running desperately low on ammunition. In reality, this was not a major issue at the real Battle of Rorkes Drift. The defenders had a very large and well-supplied ammunition dump within the compound. While there was a moment of concern, they never faced the critical shortage depicted in the movie. The filmmakers invented this crisis to heighten the drama and create a sense of impossible odds. What makes this an interesting choice is that the real story, one of a well-supplied, disciplined force defeating a disorganized and poorly armed enemy, was less cinematically compelling. The film wasn't just telling a story, it was improving it, sacrificing historical accuracy for the sake of a better narrative arc. The shortage wasn't a fact, it was a plot device. Number 7. The famous red coats required a special dye. The vibrant red of the British soldiers' tunics wasn't just a costume choice, it was a constant, expensive battle against the South African elements. The intense sun and the red dust of the Drakensberg Mountains made the standard wool uniforms look dull and faded on camera. To maintain their iconic, brilliant red hue for the Technicolor cameras, the costume department had to use hundreds of gallons of a special, more robust dye and constantly re-dye the uniforms between takes. What made this even more challenging was that the dye would often run in the heat, staining the actor's skin and creating a sticky, uncomfortable mess. The famous red coats weren't just a symbol of the British Empire, they were a logistical nightmare, a testament to the lengths the production went to achieve a perfect visual, no matter the cost or discomfort. Number 6. The final Zulu salute is pure fiction. The film's poignant ending, where the defeated Zulus salute the brave British defenders before withdrawing, is a complete fabrication with no basis in historical fact. In reality, after their final attack was repulsed, the Zulu force simply disengaged and withdrew, their will to fight broken. There was no formal salute or moment of mutual respect. This ending was invented by the filmmakers to provide a more noble, less bleak conclusion and to portray the Zulus as not just savages, but as honorable warriors who recognized courage in their enemies. What made this so effective was that it transformed the film from a simple us versus them story into a more complex tragedy of two proud warrior cultures. The salute wasn't history, it was poetry, a final, graceful lie that elevated the entire film. Number 5. The film was made on a shoestring budget. Despite its epic scale, Zulu was not a blockbuster production. It was made for a relatively modest budget of around $3 million, a fraction of what a comparable Hollywood epic would have cost at the time. This financial constraint forced the filmmakers to be incredibly resourceful. They used real Zulu tribesmen instead of paying for thousands of extras, filmed on location to avoid building expensive sets, and relied on practical effects rather than costly opticals. Stanley Baker and Cy Endfield were constantly scrimping and saving to stretch every dollar. What makes this even more impressive is that the film never looks cheap. The production wasn't just a triumph of creativity, it was a masterclass in low-budget filmmaking, proving that vision and ingenuity can often outspend a mountain of cash. Number 4. The film combines two real people into one character. For the sake of narrative simplicity, the film combines two historical figures into one. The lead character, Lieutenant John Chard, the royal engineer who commands the garrison, is based on a real person. However, his brother, Edward Chard, was also present at the battle. The film conveniently ignores Edward's existence, merging his presence and duties into John's character to create a single, more focused, heroic protagonist. This is a common and accepted practice in historical filmmaking, but it's a significant alteration. What makes this choice understandable is that it streamlines the command structure and avoids confusing the audience with two characters of the same name and rank. The character wasn't just a portrayal, it was a composite, a blend of history and fiction designed to serve the story. Number 3. The film received a Royal Command screening. Zulu wasn't just a hit with the public, It received the ultimate seal of approval from the very institution it depicted. The film was granted a Royal Command performance in London in the presence of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. The Queen, who is the head of the British Armed Forces, reportedly found the film to be thrilling and deeply moving. What made this a monumental achievement was the validation it brought. A film about a foundational moment of British military history being endorsed by the monarch herself was an unparalleled marketing tool. The screening wasn't just a premiere, it was a coronation, cementing Zulu's status as a national treasure and a beloved classic of British cinema. Number 2. The song over the end credits is a Zulu wedding song. In a bizarre and little-known fact, the song that plays over the end credits as the Zulu warriors retreat is not a war song or a lament. It is, in fact, a traditional Zulu wedding song. The song, titled Ubule Bimvelo, was chosen for its beautiful and stirring melody, not for its lyrical content, which is entirely inappropriate for the context of the film. What makes this choice so strange is that it suggests a fundamental disconnect or a simple lack of understanding on the part of the filmmakers. The solemn, martial mood of the ending is undercut by a song celebrating marriage and union. The end credits weren't just a closing sequence. They were a weirdly ironic musical choice that has puzzled and amused viewers in the know for decades. Number 1. The film's real legacy is its moral ambiguity. Zulu's lasting impact wasn't just as a war film, but as a complex and morally ambiguous statement on colonialism. While on the surface, it is a celebration of British heroism, a closer viewing reveals a deep respect for the Zulu warriors, portraying them as disciplined, brave, and honorable. The film refuses to demonize them, making their defeat tragic rather than just a victory for the good guys. This complexity, born from Cy Enfield's blacklisted, anti-authoritarian perspective, elevated the film beyond a simple adventure story. What made the film so enduring was its ability to satisfy audiences looking for a heroic tale while simultaneously offering a more nuanced and respectful portrayal of the enemy. The film wasn't just a product of its time, it was ahead of its time, a war epic that acknowledged the humanity on both sides of the conflict. Bonus fact: the Zulu extras were paid less than horses. In the most shocking and shameful secret of the production, the 450 Zulu extras were paid less per day than the horses hired for the film. Due to the exploitative wage structures of apartheid and the production's budget constraints, the men who were the heart and soul of the film's authenticity received a pittance for their hard work. They were also housed in separate, inferior camps with poor sanitation, far from the amenities provided to the white cast and crew. What makes this fact so devastating is that it laid bare the profound hypocrisy at the core of the production. A film that celebrated Zulu culture and warrior spirit was simultaneously complicit in the systemic economic oppression of those very people. The film wasn't just a work of art, it was a product of a deeply unjust system, a stain on its legacy that can never be truly erased. Zulu wasn't just a film, it was a paradox. A thrilling adventure born from financial desperation, a celebration of heroism filmed on land steeped in racial injustice, and a British epic made by a Hollywood exile. Its legacy is as complex and contradictory as the history it depicts, a masterpiece that remains both a brilliant piece of cinema and a troubling artifact of its time. The battle on screen may have ended, but the debates about its creation and meaning continue to rage on.